Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. MashaAllah, over Ramadan, we've had many different discussions. We looked at intention, we looked at invalidators of fast, we looked at kafara and then how to, pay the penalties and what sort of penalties are there for those who do not fast. If you break your fast unintentionally or intentionally, inshallah, we'll carry on our discussion, inshallah. As you can see, I'm still wearing black, and we are wearing black because we are commemorating the death of Sayyidah Khadija. Yesterday, Sheikh really mentioned a lot in regards to her legacy, her personality, the importance of such a great lady in Islam. Inshallah, we pray, for the, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises the status of Sayyidah Khadija, inshallah, who is, let's not forget, she is the mother of Sayyidah Fatima, and what pain must have Sayyidah Fatima gone through. Inshallah, we ask for the shafa of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah, through our hard times, and that we do not see any shortcomings as they saw in their lives, inshallah. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Alima. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing this evening?
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. I'm saying evening, but the sun's out, it's shining. MashaAllah, here in London, it's very nice weather. How's your fast going?
Oh, alhamdulillah.
Excellent. Sheikhna, I had a question for you. And the question is that if a woman is on her monthly cycle, if she's in menstruation, does she need to perform the qada of her missed prayers and fast during these days?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. Well, for the woman with regards to her fast and salah, let's look initially at the salah itself.
Okay.
When she is in her monthly cycle, and of course she misses at least 4, 5, 6, 7 days of the salah, then she is not obliged. It's not wajib on her to do the qada and to make it up later for the salah that she missed in these days.
Okay, so are you talking these days as in Ramadan or the days that she is in her cycle?
Initially, with the salah we begin first.
Okay.
So the salah, with regard to praying the salah or to do the qada, there's no requirement.
I meant, sorry, Sheikh, I didn't clarify. I meant the salah that we pray in Ramadan or the salah we pray outside of Ramadan, or both?
Yes, I'm just giving a general answer.
Okay.
So the salah in which she prays, that she used to pray every day, and she missed the salah because of her monthly cycle. Is it 5, 4 days, 7 days? It depends. In this case, she doesn't need to, pay back or make it up later for the salah that she missed every month. Let's say every month for the whole year.
Okay.
But for the siyam of the month of Ramadan, fasting the month of Ramadan, if she misses whatever days that she missed, 4, 5, 3, I don't know, it depends how it happens. If she misses these days of fasting, it is wajib on her to make the qada of the fasting after the holy month of Ramadan. So the salah is not requirement for the qada, but the fasting is wajib. And this was a debate between Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and Abu Hanifa as well.
Okay.
That he basically, the Imam asked him that which is most important, salah or siyam? Because Abu Hanifa based on the qiyas. He used to measure things. Because this is greater than this is the best, and so forth. Qiyas, istihsan, and so forth. So when he said salah is most important, the Imam said, how come that the woman doesn't have to do the qada of the salah, but for the fasting, she must do the qada. So you can't measure and use the qiyas in the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. So yeah, basically for the woman, they need to actually, let's say, for this month of Ramadan, if they had these issues and they couldn't fast, then they have to make it up later after the holy month of Ramadan, but not the salah, of course.
Excellent, fantastic. Inshallah, it brings some sort of, easiness towards our sisters out there. But I do know that other marja do have different opinions. So please check with your marja what he says, because some marja do actually differ from this stance that with the salah, you don't have to pay it back. Shaykhna, if one deems his act of worship during his early adolescence may have been void, for example, he thinks it was probable that his wudu may have been void, or that he's not sure if he used to perform the janaba ghusl correctly or not. So he's got some sort of doubt, some shak in his tahara, or some shak in his prayer. Is he required to perform the qada of these acts of worship on that period, such as the salah and the fast, or does he base his assumption that they were correct and they were fine? There's nothing wrong.
Well, one should assume that they were correct. But I know some individuals, out of a precaution, ihtiyat, they start to repeat in their 30s, 40s, they start to repeat their salah when they became baligh and adolescents. So they started to pray every day the qada of well, not qada, but just in case if they had qada for the past years. But as I've said, as long as you think that you've done it right, khalas, you don't have to do them again. So just assume that they were correct, inshallah.
Sheikh, what about, like you said, when someone comes to that age, a bit more mature, maybe they weren't praying before, praying properly, now they pray properly. But, those who are a bit more elder, so, like the elderly men and women who don't perform the salah correctly, and then, I mean, there's different viewpoints for this, it could be old age, or it could be like, their mental capacity and so forth. Is it mandatory to perform the qada of their salah on their behalf? Maybe like, like you said before, when someone dies, the eldest son has to, perform the qada prayers and so forth. So is it mandatory to, repay those elderly people who don't pray properly?
As I've mentioned previously, that the one who is responsible to pay back the salah, the past salah, and that he couldn't actually perform, that elderly person is by the responsibility of the eldest son. Wajib on him to make up the qada of the past salah and the duties, ibadat in overall, in terms of the duties, wajibat. So eldest son is responsible to do the qada. But in overall, yes, if there are qada, then it should be done. If there's eldest son, or to pay somebody, or to hire somebody to do the qada as well, that is possible.
Inshallah, excellent. Just a quick reminder to our viewers that this is a live show, and that if you have a question, you can send it in via the WhatsApp or our email address, or alternatively you can call us here, and inshallah we'll be more than happy to take your call and discuss your question. Inshallah, the number should be over there somewhere, inshallah, and then we can do it from there. Sheikh, what is a prohibited journey, and what is the ruling in regards to fast and salah?
Traveling is prohibited when somebody travels while he's causing harm, he's hurting, or he's annoying his parents. So he's actually in disobedience of his parents. He's leaving the house, especially if they are teens, in their 16s, 17s, just recently baligh, in that age. They try to travel by themselves, for example. The parents are not happy with this trip, for example. There's disobedience of the parents. Sometimes the scenario goes back to in a different form, where somebody goes with a group of friends, for example, for clubbing, dating, drinking, na'udhu billah, to a certain country. And this is sadly very well known in some Muslim countries, where some of the wealthy countries in the Muslim world, they travel to Europe or to Thailand or to Malaysia or other countries which allow for these indecent acts, for example. So if the trip was for the purpose of sinning and committing sins and wrongdoings, this trip and journey becomes Safarul Ma'si, as mentioned in the books of fiqh. Safarul ma'siyah, the journey of sinfulness. In this case, the one should complete his salah. There's no qasr now. Even if he was going for 3-4 days, it's just a trip, musafir. But because it is safar al-ma'siyah, a trip for the cause and for the purpose of committing sins, then he must complete his salah and also fast. So there's no concession anymore. There's no, giving him the chance in order to basically shorten his salah and break his fast, because it's a safar al-ma'siyah.
I see. Sheikh, the thirstful, one who cannot bear being very thirsty, and it proves difficult for this person, is fasting obligatory upon this person?
For such individuals who feel very thirsty and severe it's like an illness, to be honest, that comes upon some people. And of course, they are not obliged to fast. So they don't have to fast, but they have to pay for each day they didn't fast 750 grams of, as mentioned, flour, wheat, barley, dates, raisins, rice, to the poor, to the miskin. And of course, wajib for them to make it up later and qada when they get better and feel well.
Inshallah. We pray for all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat. If you are, ill during this time of Ramadan, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the shafa'ah, the Ahlul Bayt give you the shafa'ah to heal, and inshallah participate in the Ramadan and in fasting. Sheikh, chewing food. I mean, a lot of mothers chew their food for their children. Some even chew, food for birds so that the birds can eat it as well. Are we allowed to do this when we are fasting?
If this chewing does not reach the throat, in other words, they don't swallow these pieces of, let's say, bread and so forth, and of course it doesn't invalidate the fast as long as it doesn't reaches the throat. But however, if accidentally reaches the throat, it should be fine. So in both cases, it is allowed. But the one should be very careful. If they know that they might swallow the pieces, they should avoid it from the first place. Otherwise, of course, they have to make it up later as qada.
I see. Yeah, I remember discussing this in my Sunday school. There was something that Sayyid Sadiq mentions also, that if you feel that if you chew it, you're going to swallow it, then it's haram for you to chew the food as well. But that's another Salah Amaliyah and a discussion for another time, inshallah. Sheikh, beg your pardon. If one puts something other than water in his mouth and it is swallowed unintentionally and without his or her control, or if one inhales water through his nose and water gets into his throat without his control, does this render the fast invalid?
The fast would be fine because it wasn't done intentionally. Let's say you want to do the wudu and you want to inhale water in your nose and suddenly goes inside your throat. That was done unintentionally, without the purpose of inhaling the water inside the throat to quench your thirst, for example. But unintentionally, it should be fine. The fast is valid, it's correct, and no qada is required.
Oh, interesting. Inshallah, I mean, we hope our brothers and sisters don't get into that situation where we know water is getting down their throat. Sheikhna, what is the ruling for the fasting one who remains in the state of janaba till Fajr time while being ignorant about this ruling? And let us see the fatwa of Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani Hafadullah on this matter.
He would mention samahatahu that he must perform the qada but not the kaffara. Why? Because there's the ignorant criteria you mentioned, that he was ignorant with this mas'ala. He was jahil. So no kaffara, but qada, of course, because he's entered the state of, with this state of janaba into the Fajr time without washing, without using tayammum. And of course, the Sayyid said that if he was certain that this act would not nullify, so he was jahil. He thought that, yeah, that's fine, I'll remain with janaba. In the morning, I'll wash. Before I do salat subh, I'll wash. He was ignorant about it. Or the other scenario he gives that, or the fast, that he was not attentive to this ruling, no attention paid to this ruling. He wasn't aware of this ruling in somehow. So in both cases, if there is ignorance with this mas'ala, no kafara, only qada would be required to be performed after the whole month.
Okay, mashallah. Excellent, Sheikh. Sheikh, in regards to a situation, now let's say I myself, I'm fasting and I'm waiting for Maghrib time, and then someone comes and tells me that, Maghrib's already happened, the Adhan has happened. Now this person's not really reliable, but he's telling me, oh yeah, Maghrib's happened, I show you the Adhan is gone. So I say, okay, Maghrib must have happened, the Adhans must have, happened, Maghrib is set. So I open my fast. Later on, I discover, no, that individual was wrong. The timing he gave me was wrong, and I've opened my fast a couple of minutes early. Do I have to, redo my fast? Is there a kafara to pay?
Yeah, sometimes it happens that somebody asks somebody who he doesn't really trust, or, for example, it happens sometimes that somebody asks his colleague or neighbor who is not a Shia, from a different sect, who break their fast with the sunset, and he asks him, is it the iftar time approach? He said yes, and he breaks his fast with him, and he knows that, for example, this individual is not somebody he can trust with the mattering of timings of the Maghrib, of the iftar time. In this case, the one should do the qada and pay kafara as well.
Oh, wow.
Because it's a deliberate break of the fast. So qada and kafara both.
I see. So the moral of the story is, don't trust someone who's unreliable. Sheikh, if someone who's performing the qada fast of the month of Ramadan deliberately commits an act to invalidate his fast in the afternoon, what should he do?
For the qada of the month of Ramadan, outside of the month of Ramadan, somebody who does the qada, he does qada in Sha'ban, in Rajab, in other months, and he breaks, as you mentioned, after the adhan al-dhuhr. In the afternoon, he breaks his fast intentionally. Of course, he needs to redo it again of this qada, and to actually give kafara of 10, to feed 10 of paupers of the masakin, 10 poor people, to feed them, which, as I mentioned many times, 750 grams of flour, bread, barley, rice, and so forth. So it's only 10 he needs to feed, not 60. This is the qada of the holy month of Ramadan. It's not inside the holy month of Ramadan.
I see. Wow, excellent. Sheikh, the use of liquid enema, which may be given to treat, gastric issues, does this invalidate the fast?
Yes, indeed. One of the mubtalat of the fast that invalidates the fast is the use of this type of, let's say, injection. I don't know what kind of, the way they use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even
what they do is they try and pump water into the stomach. That's what they're trying to do.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, even for the purpose of treatment, still it will break the fast. So yes, the one who uses this, then they have to redo and qada of that day after the whole month of Ramadan.
Interesting. Sheikhna, gastroscope is an optical instrument used for inspecting the interior of the stomach. If inserted into the stomach, would the fast be rendered, valid or invalid? So, personally, Sheikh, I know you agree with this as well. You shouldn't really get involved in operations and procedures as such during the month of Ramadan. But let's just say you had to get it done. So, a gastroscopy or endoscopy where, cameras are stuck down the throat and so forth. Does that invalidate the fast?
According to Ayatollah Sistani, he would mention that it won't break the fast per se. But the Sayyid says that if it was contaminated with, let's say, drops of water, or sometimes they put gel to make it easier for the insertion inside the stomach, then of course it will break the fast.
Oh, I see. I see. Wow, really interesting. However, with these, I know that they put you to sleep anyway. So if you're going to take anesthetic, that makes the fast void anyway. So
Yes.
you can't really win with this. Shayla, we've got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything you'd like to tell the viewers, and any advice you want to give them?
There are three main ad'iyah or short dua after each salah. It begins with one of them, Ya Ali Ya Azim, Ya Ghafur Ya Rahim. The other dua is Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur. And the third one is Allahumma rzuqna hajja baytik al-haram. We try inshallah to read these three short dua. I think it will take no more than a minute to read them, recite them after each salah session. The one who prays after Tasbih al-Zahra alayhi salam, you read these three ad'iyah and try to understand the content of these ad'iyah. For example, Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur. We ask Allah to bring happiness to those who reside in the graves, in the graveyards, to bring joy and happiness. We ask Allah, for example, Allahumma ashbi' kulla ja'i'. Oh Allah, feed every hungry. Or for example, in other ad'iyah we have also with this regard. So we try inshallah to read this dua after each salah and ask Allah Azza wa Jal sincerely to fulfill these requirements in which we all are in need of it, even our deceased ones. As I've mentioned, the very first time of this dua, one of the dua, Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur, that we ask Allah to make and bring joy and happiness to those who are in the graves in alam al-akhirah. So inshallah we try our best to make use of this month by reciting this ad'iyah and other more ad'iyah available in Sahif al-Sajjadiyya, in Mafatih al-Jinan, Diya al-Salihin, and other books, Muntakhab al-Hasani. Lots of, mashallah, dua. I think we try to read each dua every night before the Sahar. I think that would be great. In addition to the ad'iyah I mentioned after each salah, inshallah, to gain the rewards and to apply the self-building on ourselves and implement and build ourselves. So inshallah, after the whole month of Ramadan, we feel the change, that we are a different person, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Shaykhna. Excellent advice. And thank you to all the viewers for joining us. Inshallah, you guys can join us tomorrow again at 6:30 here on Imam Hussein TV3, where we'll have another discussion discussing Islamic law. Once again, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, you can either send them via the WhatsApp or via the email address or via telephone call, and it'll be lovely to speak to you, brothers and sisters, and also to discuss your questions. Inshallah, we'll see you guys tomorrow again for a new show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.